The New York Islanders just officially signed a goalie most fans may not know much about. We'll tell you why it's a big deal. All that and more coming up on today's Locked On Islanders podcast.
Your Locked On Islanders, your daily podcast on the New York Islanders. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome, everybody, to the Wednesday edition of the Locked On Islanders podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I want to thank everyone who makes Locked On Islanders your first listen every day. Don't forget to subscribe on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts so you can get new episodes as soon as they drop. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. We have got a lot to discuss on today's show, including a signing by the team and why it's important. But first, if there's something Islanders related on your mind, if you have a question, a comment, maybe a topic you'd like us to discuss on today's show, send us an email to lockedonislanders@gmail.com. And if you leave your first name and where you're from, we're happy to mention you on the show when we discuss whatever's on your mind. You can also follow the show on X at Locked On Isles, and you could follow me, Gil Martin, on X at Ice Wars, NYR, VSNYI. We'll keep you up to date on all things Islanders throughout the offseason, trade rumors, free agent signings, hirings, firings, draft news, whatever it is, we'll have you covered right here on the Locked On Islanders podcast. And it's great to talk Islanders hockey with you, game time or anytime. So the Islanders made it official on Tuesday. And this is something we did actually mention a week or two ago. But now that it's official, I think we can talk a little bit more about it and what it actually means for the team. The Islanders signing Swedish goaltender Marcus Hogberg to a 2-year contract. And look, I'm sure not a lot of people have heard a lot about Marcus Hogberg. He's 29 years old. He's been playing in his native Sweden for the last, let's say 3 seasons. Played 3 seasons or parts of 3 seasons in the NHL with the Ottawa Senators, who drafted him back in 2013 in the 3rd round with the 78th overall pick. In his career, 42 NHL games. He has a record of 9-17-9, a 3.39 goals against average, and an 8.94 save percentage. So, those are not, how should I put it, outstanding numbers. Now, his numbers were better last year in Sweden, a 2.51 goals against, a 9.14 save percentage. And he's a big guy. He is 6'5", 220 pounds. So he gives you the size that we know the New York Islanders like. And I think it's safe to say what the Islanders' plan is for Hogberg. And, look, the guy could come in to training camp and blow everyone away, or an injury could happen. And obviously, these plans could change. But when I saw this signing and I did a little, thinking about it and some analysis, I think Hogberg is the perfect person to be the new Corey Schneider. What do I mean by that? Well, Corey Schneider didn't play last year. He retired. But before that, Schneider gave the Islanders someone who could mentor the young prospect goalies in Bridgeport, split time with them, play, down there and be a professional and show those young goalies what it takes to be a professional. So that's number one. And then number two, if in the event that either Ilya Sorokin or Semyon Varlamov get hurt, and we saw it happen with Varley last season, Hogberg is the kind of guy, because he has played in the NHL before, who you would feel confident about if you had to call him up for a week, 2 weeks, even a month, where last year the Islanders did not have anybody who could fill that role. And to be honest with you, if you look back at what happened to the Islanders last season, the fact that they did not have a third goaltender in the organization that they trusted to come up and play in the NHL when injuries struck really undermined this team. And the goalie they had, who was next up in the pecking order last year, was Ken Appleby. And Appleby got the call when Semyon Varlamov got hurt, but he didn't play. He ended up playing one period of hockey. And as a result, Ilya Sorokin played 14 straight games during, the middle part of the season. And while I know Sorokin wasn't playing at the same level he was last year, even before playing 14 games in a row in the middle of the year, those 14 games had an effect on Sorokin mentally and physically. He got tired and worn down. And I think when you combine the fact that Sorokin was facing a lot of pucks because the Islanders' team defense was very inconsistent earlier in the season when Lane Lambert was the coach. You combine the high number of shots plus the 14 games in a row, the fact that the Islanders organization did not trust Ken Appleby to play in the NHL when Varlamov got hurt really hurt this team. And when it came time for the stretch drive, it was clear that Sorokin was both mentally and physically tired. Appleby played one period, gave up 2 goals on 8 shots. That's a .750 save percentage. And he came into that game after, 2 periods where it was already the game was more or less already decided. So what did you have? You had a goalie who you could only throw in there in an emergency where, you're, either your starting goalie gets hurt and you have no choice but to play the backup, or you're losing 5-1 and the goalie, starter is tired. So in an emergency, you plug in Ken Appleby. Well, Appleby is an unrestricted free agent. He's also 29 years old. All due respect to Ken Appleby, at this stage in his career, he is not considered an NHL prospect. He is a solid AHL goalie. He is somebody who has a value to the right organization. But right now, he does not fit the needs of the New York Islanders. But you know who does fit that need? Hogberg. So you sign a player, and now you have that little bit of insurance where if either Ilya Sorokin or Semyon Varlamov get injured and they're out of the lineup, you don't feel worried about Marcus Hogberg like you did with Ken Appleby. And therefore, if it comes to it, look, I'm not going to say that Hogberg would split time with Varlamov or Sorokin, depending on which one of them was still in the lineup and which one of them was hurt. I'm not saying that. But you wouldn't have a situation where you had to start one goalie 14 games in a row. And if Hogberg plays once every 3 games or, twice every 5 or 6 games, whatever it is, he at least is somebody who has a proven NHL track record, knows the game, played in, the AHL and ECHL as well while he was part of the Senators organization. And that was between late in the 2016-2017 season all the way through to the end of the 2020-2021 campaign. So is this guy an all-star? No. Is he the next, star goalie of the New York Islanders? No. Is he likely even a starter for the Islanders? No. Does he open up the possibility of trading away one of the two established goalies? Probably not. But he gives you that insurance policy. He's that Corey Schneider guy who can come in and get the job done in the short term if injuries happen. And if you think about it, the fact that the Islanders did not have a player to fit that mold hurt this team in the playoffs and down the stretch when they got very fortunate that the backup goalie, in this case, Semyon Varlamov, played his best hockey during a stretch when Ilya Sorokin was completely burned out. All right, we have got more to get to. We're going to talk a little bit about who should be the Islanders team MVP. We got a great comment on YouTube about that, and definitely wanted to, put forth some candidates and talk about that. We'll also talk about a big issue that is facing this organization that they need to address. And for our Islanders birthday of the day, a former first-round pick who only spent 2 years on the island in 1999, 2000, and 2001. He is a forward. Let's see if you can guess who that is. We've got all that and a lot more coming up on today's Locked On Islanders podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Game Time is an authorized ticket marketplace of the NBA, which makes getting playoff tickets even faster and easier. Prices on Game Time actually go down the closer it gets to tip-off, and they have killer last-minute deals, all-in prices and their lowest price guarantee. So Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying NBA tickets. My favorite feature on Game Time, well, they have the view from your seat. You go on the app, you could see the view from your seat before you buy the ticket, so you know exactly what to expect when you arrive. Take the guesswork out of buying NBA tickets with Game Time. Just download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last-minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed. Today's episode is also brought to you by Indeed. There is no I in team, but there is one in Indeed, and that's the hiring platform you need to build yours. When you're hiring, you need Indeed. Indeed is the hiring platform where you can attract, interview, and hire all in one place. Instead of spending hours on multiple job sites searching for candidates with the right skills, Indeed's powerful hiring platform can help you do it all. And, start hiring now with a $75 sponsored job credit to upgrade your job at Indeed.com/lockedon. Offer is only good for a limited time, so claim your $75 credit now at Indeed.com/lockedon. That's Indeed.com/lockedon. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? You need Indeed. Are you watching Fox Sports or ESPN on your TV all day? Have to turn down the volume with all that shouting? Make the switch to Locked On Sports Today, a free 24/7 streaming channel programmed for you every day to bring you the biggest stories without all the screaming. Locked On Sports Today brings you can't-miss analysis, opinions, and news, streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So we have a new poll up on our YouTube page. Check it out and subscribe if you're not already subscribed. But who do you think should be the New York Islanders MVP this year? And I gave 4 choices, but I kind of think there could be a couple of more. So I'll discuss some of them as we, discuss this. And I'll talk a little bit about the pros and cons of each of these candidates. And then I'll, at the end of this week, maybe either Friday or Monday, we will actually announce who, you voted for and who the winner of our listeners and viewers, who they think the MVP should be. So the first candidate that I listed is Noah Dobson. And I think Dobson, 70 points in 79 games, a plus 12 on a team that does, had issues with their plus minus, and 23 power play assists, 4 game winning goals, clearly offensively at least. Dobson took his game to another level this year. And, he's in rare air in Islanders history with the 70-point season. Only Dennis Potvin among Islander defensemen has topped that mark. And again, Dobson really, really stepping up. And he also blocked 180 shots, which led the team. Pretty hard to believe that Noah Dobson did that. But on the negative side, his defense certainly still leaves a lot to be desired. And I think he was tired by the end of the season. His performance in the playoffs and in the last, let's say, 2-3 weeks, maybe month of the year, wasn't the same as it was the rest of the season. So those are sort of the pros and cons on Noah Dobson. Matthew Barzal has to be in this conversation. Led the team with 80 points, second on the team with 57 assists, had 25 points on the power play, 5 goals, 20 assists. Clearly the team's best skater and their most dynamic offensive forward. Again, Barzy, a point a game player, 80 points in 80 games, 23 goals, a new career high and by far his best season since his first year in the league. But again, with Matthew Barzal, imagine what he would be if they had a sniper to go with he and Bo Horvat. And then with Barzy, again, I think it's the consistency where there are times when he just, does these dynamic things and then gives up the puck and causes turnovers. That's when he's not playing his A game. When he's playing his A game, that skating and that dynamic performance really is a difference for this team. The third candidate that I listed in the vote is Bo Horvat. And I think Horvat gave you some leadership. He was second on the team with 33 goals. He had 68 points, which was fourth on the team. Led the team or tied for the team lead in power play goals with 10. 6 game-winning goals, which places him second on the team. And again, there was a lot of concern about Bo Horvat that, he would never match the productivity he had a year ago. The Islanders are more of a defensive team than an offensive, than the Canucks were when he was there and he played so well. And he doesn't have 2 really great line mates to play with him. Horvat did more than okay statistically. And, 68 points, 33 goals in 81 games. He gave you some leadership. Bo Horvat, candidate number 3. The fourth candidate that I listed was Brock Nelson. Nelson led the team with 34 goals. He was third on the team with 69 points. He had 9 power play goals, which was only behind Horvat and Kyle Palmieri. He had, again, more consistent offensive production, perhaps, than any other player on the team as far as goal scoring goes. So I had to include him. Now, there were some other people who I think deserve some consideration, but did not make my top 4. I think you have to include Semyon Varlamov. They don't make the playoffs without the strong finish from Varley and the playoff series, which wasn't super close, but it would not have been even as close as it was without the fine goaltending that Varlamov gave you. And maybe the Islanders win game 3 if Varley starts it. Varley, a .260 goals against average, a .918 save percentage, 14-8 and 4 on the year. So he was actually above 500, even with the overtime and shootout losses. Varlamov would be a 5th choice. So if you want to vote for Varley or anyone else, just comment and we'll count that vote. And then I guess the other player, 30-goal season from Kyle Palmieri, which not a lot of people expected. Tied for the team lead in 10 power play goals, led the team with 8 game-winning goals, played in all 82 games, and really exceeded expectations as far as his performance was concerned. So those are the 6 guys that I rated at the top of my list. You may want to write in somebody else, and that's fine. But we are going to break down some of these, awards, and we're going to have you vote on all of them. So go to our YouTube page and vote, and hopefully we will see what the fans have to say about who the Islanders MVP for last season should be. We have got more to get to on today's show. We are going to talk about a problem that this organization is facing. And we kind of talked around it, but I want to dig a little bit deeper into it because someone in the national media spoke about it just the other day. So we're going to talk about that. We'll have our Islanders birthday of the day and a lot more coming up on today's Locked On Islanders podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by Monopoly Go. All right, game off. We got to pause here to talk more about Monopoly Go. I know what you're saying. Flag on the play. You already talked about that, but there's just so much good stuff in this game. In Monopoly Go, you could team up with friends for timed tournaments where you work together to build up each other's boards. The more you win together, the more awesome prizes you unlock. And there's so much to get. You get unique stickers. You could trade with friends to complete albums for big prizes. Cool new playing pieces to travel the boards with, hilarious emojis for taunting friends when you smash their buildings or heist their vaults. Plus, Monopoly Go feels new and exciting every day with constantly changing tournaments and challenges. A ton include their own unique mini games like digging for treasure or a robot pachinko machine. There's always new timed events that help you win big, like massive multipliers for everything you win or rent frenzies. There's always something fun to discover in Monopoly Go. So get off the bench and go download it free on Google Play or the App Store. Game on. Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube, and now it's also available on Amazon Fire TV and the Free Fire TV channels app. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with the local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. Find Locked On Sports Today, now available in the Free Fire TV channels app. I wanted to address something that was in the national media earlier this week. And, to me, it is important because there really are a lot of issues facing this team. And Elliot Friedman of Sportsnet up in Canada had this to say on his 32 Thoughts podcast. And Friedman is one of the more respected national media people who cover this game up in Canada. He said, when discussing the Islanders, we've talked about this a billion times. They need an infusion of youth like around the organization. Right now, they just don't have enough people pushing for jobs. And that is something they really need to improve on. It's the amount of young players. You have heard us talk about it before. The Athletic, Scott Wheeler, their prospect analyst, ranked the Islanders dead last in the league as far as prospect pools. Our own Heidi Kalakesh of Locked On NHL Prospects described before the season started that the Islanders prospect pool is more like a puddle. We know that the prospect situation has not been good. And when you don't have a first round pick for 4 years in a row, it is going to be tough to get top ranked prospects. Right now, who are the biggest prospects in the organization? Matthew Maggio, William Dufour, Danny Nelson, Cal Odelius, and none of these guys, I would say, are really close to being NHL ready. And, I think you'll see more of a look in training camp from Dufour and Maggio. I think Nelson is a year or two more away. Odelius, 2 more years away. Jeffries, probably another year or two away. The fact that this organization does not have any blue chip prospects is damaging. But here's the way it's damaging. And I've heard so many of you on X and in comments and emails to me talk about the lack of accountability throughout this Islanders organization. And I agree. And I think Patrick Waugh tried to artificially create a little bit of accountability by the way he juggled his lines so that, players could basically have to prove themselves. Hey, you want those top 6 minutes? Show me what you got. Play the right way. You want to be in the lineup? You got to play my style of hockey and get the job done. This organization not only doesn't have a lot of prospects, they are not known for developing them well. And we saw how the development, for example, of Oliver Wahlstrom was impeded at times by the way the organization treated him. And there are, several other examples throughout the last few years of players who just never really got the chance. I think Samuel Bolduc, for example, I understand why he was the 7th or 8th defenseman, but there comes a point in a player's development where he's got to play somewhere. And he had to go through waivers to go back to the AHL. But the Islanders tend not to let young players make mistakes, whereas veteran players tend to be able to get away with making the same mistake over and over again, and they end up staying in the lineup. But one of the core reasons for that problem remains the fact that the Islanders do not have a lot of prospects who are ready to step in and compete for jobs. So if you are a bottom 6 forward on the Islanders, there's just not a lot of guys who are ready to take your job if you falter. And yeah, okay, so, Hudson Fasching, Pierre Engvall, and Simon Holmstrom kind of rotated in and out of the lineup under Patrick Waugh. Okay, I get it. That's a little bit of accountability. But, if you had a guy who was in Bridgeport who was playing well and was ready to step in, or 2 or 3 guys, even better, that changes your motivation a lot. So whether Lou Lamoriello makes major changes in this lineup, and the odds are he will not, although hopefully he does add some players that fit Patrick Waugh's system a little better in the offseason. One thing he has to do, hell or high water, this organization needs to replenish their prospect pool and get some guys in Bridgeport who are ready to step in and can push the guys in the lineup now, because they have to know if they don't play well, they're not necessarily going to be in the lineup. And until that happens, this team is going to be missing something. And we've seen that be an issue over the last couple of years, and it's only going to get worse until the Islanders start to replenish that prospect pool. Time now for our Islanders birthday of the day. And yesterday, Tuesday, was the 43rd birthday of former Islanders forward Tim Connolly, the Syracuse, New York native, 6'1", 191 pounds, first-round pick, 5th overall by the Islanders in 1999. Started his career that year, 1999-2000, with the Islanders, playing in 81 games, had 14 goals and 34 points on a struggling Islanders team, came back the next year, 10 goals, 41 points, and then was traded to the Buffalo Sabres. Had one season at the end of his career for the Maple Leafs before playing in the AHL and then hanging up the skates. Connolly played in almost 700 NHL games, 131 goals, 431 points, 300 penalty minutes, He had 5 goals and 23 points in 36 postseason games, all of those with Buffalo. And even though Conley carved out a pretty good career in the NHL as a two-way forward, always getting somewhere in the teens in goals for most of his career, he never really lived up to being the 5th overall pick in the draft. One of his better games as an Islander, January 13th, 2001, a home game at the Coliseum. In this game, Tim Connolly assisted on a goal in the second period by Marius Cherkovsky. Assisted on a goal in the second period by Dave Scatchard. Assisted on a power play goal in the third period by Gary Galley. And then assisted on a power play goal midway through the third by Mark Parrish. The Islanders defeat the Pittsburgh Penguins 6-5. Tim Connolly, 4 assists. He was at +2. He had 3 shots on goal and played 24 and a half minutes in this game. So a very impressive 4-assist night for Tim Connolly. He is our Islanders birthday of the day. I want to thank everyone again for making Locked On Islanders your first listen every day. Everydayers, tomorrow on the show, we will continue our season wrap-up as we discuss some other issues facing this team as we head into the off season. So make sure you join us for that. Have a great day, everybody. Stay safe. And of course, let's go Islanders.